I first got interested in filmmaking when I was in college, and I was trying to decide what my major was going to be, and I've always loved stories growing up. I was a big reader, and then I danced growing up, so different forms of storytelling were always really interesting to me. And when I was in college, I was having a really hard time adjusting to like a new phase of life. I was really homesick, and I saw this movie called Brooklyn with Saoirse Ronan in it. Highly recommend. And I went and saw it like 4 times in the theaters because it was about this woman who immigrated from Ireland to Brooklyn, New York in the 1950s. And even though our stories were just like totally different, I felt really understood by the movie, and the choice that she makes is to like invest in her new life and move on from her past. And that message really resonated with me, and I felt like it helped me get through hard days and decide to move into the future for myself. And because it was a movie and a story that impacted me so greatly, I wanted to be a part of that somehow. And so I decided to major in media arts at BYU, which is essentially their film program. And yeah, it kind of took off from there. So I got to my current role at Disney by getting hired on as a coordinator. Production management work is pretty linear. So you start out as an intern or an assistant, you get promoted to coordinator level, then supervisor, and then on until you reach producer level. That's usually the end goal for most people in production management. And so I was a coordinator at DreamWorks, and I jumped and made kind of a lateral move over to Disney, and then was promoted into my supervisor role. So after about a year and a half, I started being a supervisor. My current job as a production supervisor at Disney involves managing a team of artists. So animation is much like live action in that you have specialized people. So you have like, in the same way you have a DP in live action, we also have a DP in animation. But instead of holding a physical camera or directing a camera operator, it's a virtual camera. So you have an artist in charge of a specific part of the pipeline. So a lot of people know about animators because they're kind of at the forefront. They're essentially like our actors. They're moving the characters virtually. But you also have modelers who are like forming clay virtually and creating the characters and environments. You have layout artists who are in charge of camera work and cinematography. And then you also have lighting artists who do the other half of cinematography. So I'm in charge of managing a team of artists that has one of those specialties. So the team can be anywhere from like 10 people to over 100. It just depends on the size of your department and how much time you have to finish the work on the project. So my current role is on Zootopia 2, which comes out at Thanksgiving of this year, and I'm over the technical animation artists. And so they're pretty specialized in that if they're doing their job right, you probably shouldn't notice the work, but they're in charge of hair movement and cloth movement. And then any like special shapes. So if there's like a really squishy like pose, they smooth out any lines and make it extra squishy or jiggly, or it's pretty fun. So it's kind of a sillier department, so I'm really enjoying my time on Zootopia. An example recently would be Moana 2 just came out at Thanksgiving, and her hair is huge. I mean, and it's curly and it flows in the wind. There's all these hero shots of like her standing on the bow of the ship and it's like flowing in the wind, and she's so majestic, and like that tells a story. It shows she's like taking care of her future and her community, and so it's cool to see that, you know, these small details that, you know, obviously matter in live action, but you have more control over them in animation, so they really amp it up to help tell the story a little better. When I was in school, I knew I wanted to do an internship between my junior and senior year. And so I just Googled every possible open internship application in Los Angeles, because I knew I was gravitating towards a studio system as opposed to like independent filmmaking. I love planning, I love structure, so I knew I would want to be in a studio at some point. So I applied to every internship in Los Angeles with the word production in it. I honestly probably didn't even read most of the descriptions, because I was just like, anything to get me out there for a time so I could network and like get to know the area and just the industry. And I got rejected from every single one. I probably applied to like 50 plus. It was crazy. And I heard back after getting all of those rejections from a recruiter at DreamWorks, and I don't even remember replying. I probably thought it was live action, but she saw my resume. She was a BYU alumni, and she was like, I just had a feeling I should get you on the phone and talk to you. And we clicked really quickly, and we're still friends to this day. And I knew nothing about animation, but I was like, I would be so crazy not to take this opportunity. And I feel really lucky because I know how rare an opportunity like that is, you know, looking back. So yeah, so then I went and I just kind of took the opportunity and tried to make the best of it and just fell in love with animation during my time that summer. My one big takeaway from my time as an intern specifically at DreamWorks was that work can be really fun. And I just always thought of my job post-grad as this cog in the machine, you know, like you show up and it takes a long time and you're sitting in a cubicle like hunched over, and everyone there was so committed to having a great time at work. And I had more fun at work than really in most experiences in my life. And so I think it's a combination of we didn't take it too seriously. Like at the end of the day when things are tense or people are arguing or frustrated with each other, like we're making a cartoon about troll dolls, you know, it's so silly. Like sometimes you have a meeting all about, you know, a dumb joke, a fart joke sometimes, you know, so you can't take it too seriously when you're in that type of content. So I think it allows that level of fun and enjoyment, but also the people that I worked with were really committed to making sure that everyone had a great time and felt welcome, and I don't know, tried to inject something exciting into every day. So that was a big takeaway. I felt like I learned that work doesn't have to be what it had always been painted for me in my life. It could be something that I really enjoy and look forward to going to every day. A typical workday at Disney varies a lot depending on if I'm in production or if I'm in pre-production. I like to meet every day with my team in the mornings to strategize how to handle the day. So I have a team of production coordinators or assistants. In my current role, I will have a coordinator and an assistant. So I like to meet with them and our department head every day to look at the schedule, see what needs to be done, who's going to be covering what, who's taking notes for what meetings, who's setting up for different reviews. So that starts the day. And then throughout the day, it's kind of a mishmash of reviews and meetings to strategize technical issues. I meet a lot one-on-one with my artists or other production management people in the company. And then any like studio-wide meetings. So a review, for example, we usually structure our days around our reviews, and that includes our artists will submit some of their shots. So artists will work on individual shots. When they have a pass that they want feedback on, they'll submit it to us to show to whoever their approver is. So for my current department, that would be our visual effects supervisor or our production designer or our head of department. And they give creative feedback. We look at it on a big screen that mimics a movie screen, so you can see it like in real detail and in the size that you would see in a movie theater. They give feedback, we take notes, we deliver them to the artists, and then they go back and they address those notes. So our days are largely structured around those reviews. In other departments, that review might be with the director, it could be just with the production designer, it could even be with like the chief creative officer at the studio. So it just depends on what your department is and who your approver is, who's kind of in charge of having jurisdiction over that creativity. But it's my job to kind of facilitate that review process and then make sure everything gets passed on to the artist so they can address those notes in a timely manner and do their work. And then everything in between those meetings is communicating with other departments, you know, managing calendars, tracking requests from department to department, and making sure everyone's getting along, which doesn't always happen, but we try to make it work. I think at last count, and we just started production and it will ramp up to way more, but I think at last count we had like close to 200 crew members, and it will probably get, I mean, it kind of depends on the project, but it'll probably get up to like 350 or 400. So yeah, it's a pretty big crew, which is fun. A good production supervisor balances between leading with compassion and also being really organized. So I kind of think of my job as, I've said it a couple times, like facilitating the creative process. So that means allowing my artists to do their best creative work and giving them the mental space, the emotional safety to be able to brainstorm and shout out ideas and not feel like they're getting shut down by anyone in the room. So I help, smooth over or manage any interpersonal issues. But I also think that facilitating creativity comes with parameters. So I'm the one who communicates their deadlines and makes sure they know what they're needing to do in what capacity, because I think restriction inspires creativity. Obviously, I'm thinking more about the schedule, but also creatively, like if you have a box and you have to draw within the box, you get really creative on what you can fit in the box. More so than if you just had free reign to draw all over the page. So I kind of think of my job as both making sure they have the space and the freedom to do their best work and to feel inspired and to feel like they can bring their own ideas to the table, but also so that they can do it in a timely manner so we can get enough done and stay under budget and actually finish the movie. So I kind of balance those lines, so I think that's what I strive for, and I think that's what makes a good production supervisor. My favorite thing about my job is the people that I work with. I felt this at DreamWorks as well. The animation industry is so small, but there's a level of excellency that exists in these bigger studios because everyone has worked really hard to get where they are, and everyone grew up on these movies. Everyone's very passionate about the work, and so everyone really pushes each other to do their best. And when someone messes up or maybe isn't doing things as well as they could be, there's always someone to be like, hey, why'd you do it that way? And so I feel really motivated by the people that I work with, but they're also so kind and really fun. So I just feel like I'm surrounded by people who are really inspiring to me on every level. They're great professionals and just stewards of their craft, but they also are just amazing people, and I like them a lot, so I really like the people. My advice to students who are thinking of pursuing a career in the film industry or media and entertainment under any capacity is to really figure out your why behind what you do. So I mentioned, I've been impacted by stories my whole life. They have gotten me through and continue to get me through my hardest times, and I really believe in the world-changing power of a good story. It is part of who I am. So when things are really hard, which they are, everyone goes through hard things, but especially in your career, I'm able to kind of rest back on that and remember this is why I do this. And even though I'm in the crucible right now, I know that the end product will be really special, and I get to share it with people. And even if the end product isn't that great, I can move on to the next one and start over again. So whatever that looks like for a student, I think finding that so you have a resting place when things get hard, because things will get hard, and that will propel you through those tough times. And that's true for any industry, any job, but I think especially in a creative industry that is really tumultuous and can be really soul-sucking, it is especially important because you will also have people who tell you to get a real job, and some people, we just can't do that, It's we care a lot, and you want to pursue what you want to pursue. So just find your why and trust that you're the only one who really knows why you do what you do, but that's important.